Yeah, hello. Thanks for the introduction, Michael. I came to this a bit as a surprise this morning, but I hope my questions are okay for you. Great. Answered already the first one. Who are you?
I'm Adam Gilmore.
Oh, thanks. Where do you live today? So where were you born and where do you live today, actually?
So I was born in the northeast of England, in a town called Whitley Bay, near where Rob Hubbard lived when he was writing a lot of his good music. I moved down to London to go to college in 1989, and I was still doing a lot of video game music then. And now I live in a small village called Broadhinton. It's just south of Swindon, to the west of London. It has a very large Polish community in Swindon. There's a lot of Polish history near where I live now, but I don't speak Polish.
Okay, so you essentially stayed in Britain for all your life, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've travelled and I've worked abroad, but not lived there. Lived anywhere.
Okay, so when was your first... when did you first get in touch with computers?
So, my first computer was a Sinclair ZX81. A friend of mine had one, and I used to go around to his house, and I thought this is really cool. And my father was an electrician electronics engineer, and he saw I was interested, so he got me a Sinclair ZX81 in about would have been probably 1981 or 1982. That was the first one. Not very good for sound though, but quite cool games on it.
Yeah, it was actually also my first computer. So I was quite young. So what was your age at that time?
So I was, in 1982 I would have been 12.
Okay. And what time did you start working for Zeppelin Games then?
So I was a freelancer for Zeppelin. I wasn't employed by them.
Okay.
But I used to go to so to answer your question, about 1987, I started doing work for them. But I met the founders of Zeppelin Games at a computer club that I used to hang out at, a copy club, basically, when we used to pirate software. And I met Derek Brewster, who any ZX Spectrum fans here would know codename Matt. And he was the programmer for codename Matt. And he was setting up a new software company building budget games, and he asked me to do the first music I did was for a game for Derek Brewster called Mission Shark, and I don't think it was ever released, but I did that, and then Zeppelin Games got founded with Derek Brewster and Brian Jobling, who was an Atari developer, and a guy called Martin O'Connell, and they gathered a bunch of young programmers and graphic designers. And then I freelanced for them, writing music for some of their games. The first games they did, like Zybex and Dracona. So that was about 1987. I think they got released in 88, but we were certainly working on them in 87.
So at that time, what was your age?
17. I was born in 1970, so it's really easy to work out my age.
Wow. So was making you were 17, so you were not even an adult, right? So
no.
Okay. Then the next question hardly makes sense. So it was making music. Was it your main job or was it a hobby? So for us, most of the computer stuff, of course, it was a hobby, but
yeah. So in probably 1985, I had a bunch of, probably like most of you had a bunch of friends that were into computers, and you would be looking at games, and maybe you started writing some games or writing demos, and I started writing music using the, I can't remember what it was called. There was a sound tool, it was bloody terrible, on the Commodore 64. I started using this sound tool, before Sound Monitor. I can't remember what it's called.
Future Composer?
No, it was long before that. Barry Leach used to use it, if you know Barry Leach, the composer. But anyway, so I started doing that in about 1985, and then we started publishing demos to CompuNet, which was the Commodore BBS system, when I was probably 1986, and that's where I started, writing demo music really, and then I wrote my own player, and that's when I started doing the game music.
I see. So you already answered one of the next questions then. So, and this process of creating the music, so were you into making music even before you had computers? So were you a musician? Did you play other instruments?
Yeah, so like I said before, my father was an electrician, electronics guy, but he was also a musician, and he was a jazz organ player, so we had an organ, you know, Yamaha organ in the house, so I always liked playing with that. And when I was about 13, I got into heavy metal. If you see metal, if you see any photos of me from Zeppelin Games days, I had quite long hair, and I bought a bass guitar. Well, my parents bought me a bass guitar, and I started playing sort of Iron Maiden and Venom. I was a big fan of Venom, that sort of thing. Oh yeah, black metal.
You see, there are also a lot of people with black shirts here.
Yeah, exactly. There looks like a lot of Venom fans here. So I was already playing music before I got a computer, and so it was quite natural when I was working with this group of friends. You know, one guy does the programming, another does the graphics. Well, I might as well do the music. So that's really how it started.
Interesting, thank you. So you mentioned that you wrote your own code to also compose the music, or rather to do the player?
Yeah, so I wrote the player 6502 initially on the Commodore 64. And then I composed the music as well. And then on the Atari 8-bit, I ported the music over, because it's 6502 as well, so I ported the music over to that.
And did you also port music to other platforms that are not 6502?
Yeah, so I think I started trying to do a Spectrum player, but I gave up on that because it wasn't very good.
The Spectrum, of course.
Well, no, the Spectrum's okay, but I think the sound capabilities of a 48K Spectrum are quite lacking.
Just deeper.
Well, just deeper. But saying that, I ported my player over to the PC, and I supported Sound Blaster and Ad-Lib cards, but I also supported the beeper on that. So I actually did some music, early music for the PC, that did work, you know, one channel on a beeper. It sounds terrible.
But it means that your songs were typically primarily done for one platform then?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially the Commodore 64 was the platform I was programming and writing for, and then the Atari 800.
Okay, that was the past. So, and then we didn't hear not a lot from you, at least I did, in the Atari scene, and now suddenly we have a new release in Time with the Deluxe. So what made you come back to the Atari scene and create new music?
Yeah, exactly. It was great. Christoph, who's over there somewhere. There he is. Hi. He pinged me, I think, on WhatsApp and our Messenger or something like that, and said, "Hey, Adam, you know, would you be interested in doing some pokey music for his game?" And we had a call and we had a good chat. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." Not using my own player, but using Raster Music Tracker, which is brilliant. And we collaborated quite tightly on it, and refining the music, and Christoph would come up with some ideas for music, and I'd quickly turn those around, so that was really good.
Yeah, cool.
And the Poke is such a good chip, it's really
No, you don't have to convince anybody here. Yeah. So you mentioned already that you are using different tools now, so what are the tools that you use or have used for the Atari music nowadays?
Yeah, so I used Raster Music Tracker for Time Wizard on the 8-bit Atari, and I've just done the music for Tony on the Montezuma's Gold on the ST, and I've never really done ST music before. I did some mods back in the day, but they were just converted from the Amiga mod and then just played on the Atari. But I used Maximizer on the Atari ST, and I don't know if Gwen's in here. But,
yes, he is.
Yeah, hey, Gwen.
Give a hand to Graham for creating things that Adam can create music on.
It's really good, and I had a chat with Graham yesterday about it. If you haven't used Maximizer, it's a really good tool, but it does take a bit of getting used to, especially if you haven't written tracker music before. But you know, it takes probably 10 hours of just figuring it out, you know, and trying things out. But once you figure it out, it's a very, very powerful tool, and it's really great on the wire. And there's loads of great sounds you can do with it.
So this morning I also checked what you did on other platforms. I was surprised because it was a huge list of things that I didn't know. And And so obviously after the 8-bit era, you continued your venture into computer music. So what did you do then?
Well, I think it was around 1989, 1990. I bought an Amiga 500 and started playing around with Sound Tracker and I think Pro Tracker at the time. And I did some Amiga games for Zeppelin Games. And that was just using mods. I don't really like using samples at all, so you know it wasn't much fun.
Well, that wasn't my question, so that's okay. And what would you say is the major difference in making music for these old platforms, if you compare your process that you had back then and what you do now, maybe with Raster Music Tracker, or maybe you're composing it outside of the tool first and then you're converting it, or what? How do you work?
So I really like the chip tune music rather than modern music, which is recorded using Ableton Live and orchestral samples and all that. How do I work? So I normally get an idea for a song in my head, and I was preempting this question, and I was looking at some of the Tony music and the Time Wizard music, and how did I compose it? Well, I tend to use voice memo, and then I'm maybe walking down the road or walking in the countryside. It's really good.
So you sing with the telephone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tend to get tuned. Yeah, you get ideas in your head, you're walking around. So I maybe just hit record, hum an idea, and then you get home and you try and key it in. I've got synthesizers, so I'll maybe try and play it out a bit on a synthesizer. I don't tend to record it before I put it into the tool. So I'll go straight into Maximizer or RMT once I get an idea in my head.
That's very interesting because as a coder I have a completely different approach to these things, so I cannot do something without being at the computer essentially. So yeah, interesting. And yeah, you mentioned Rob Hubbard in the beginning and that he was even living close to you. So did you know the other people? So for me, from today's standpoint of view, there were not many people that actually did rememberable music or successful music on these platforms. There were just a few. And the question is, did you know them back then? Because there was no internet, you didn't probably know which other people did what, so did you know any of them?
I mean, I knew of them because they were kind of my heroes, especially on the Commodore 64, there was some great musicians on that, Martin Galway, Ben Dalglish, David Whittaker, Rob Hubbard, and then later people like Jerome Tell were really good. So I met Rob Hubbard, like I said, he lived near me. And a friend of mine knew him, so I went over once to his house and met him. But the other guys, no, I didn't know them.
So you knew them only from the releases because you knew the software?
Exactly, yes.
I see. And the songs that you did for Zeppelin Games or maybe for other occasions, so were they kind of made to order, or were they songs that you had figured out earlier and you composed them, and when you were approached you said, yeah, this is a suitable song for that?
So normally I would compose them to order, so the company would get into the Zeppelin Games or Activision would get in touch with me and say, can you do the music for this new game? And I'd say yes. And so I'd crack on with it. The only one that I wrote that didn't end up in the game was actually Draconis. The original music I wrote for Draconis ended up in the Corporation by Activision. I'd written that, I'd started writing that music for Draconis, and then Activision got in touch, and I had this piece of music that I was writing, and they needed it quicker. Mm-hmm. So I ended up finishing the Corporation and sending it to them, and then writing the new Draconis music.
Yeah, great. Yes?
Adam, I got a photo from you today, from the Zeppelin Games. Pinocchio, możesz wyświetlić? There is one photo from me. something about this photo?
Yeah, that's Zeppelin Games in 1987. So that's probably before we released any games. So I don't know if you can guess which one I am, but I'm the guy with the big hair in the middle. Yeah, is that a Metallica t-shirt, I think, is it? Is it? Oh, that's Spike. He's a Spectrum programmer, we don't talk to Spike. But the guy on the top left at the back is Kevin Franklin, the programmer for the C64 Draconis and Zybex and Ball Blaster. And then the guy to my left, on the right of me, is Michael Owens, who's the designer for Draconis and Zybex on Commodore and Atari as well. Yeah, so Michael is the fourth along at the back, fourth from the left.
So where are you on the photo?
So I'm the third guy from the left with the big hat. Yeah, that's me.
There is Ian Copeland. Ian Copeland. Robert Best.
No, so I don't believe Ian worked for Zeppelin. He was a freelancer, I think. But he certainly was. All of the guys there, apart from me, were employees of Zeppelin. I was a freelancer, but I kind of got in the photo.
Robert Besson.
I don't know.
He was the coder of Blinky Scary School for Commodore 64.
Simon, just to repeat the question, so Simon asked for the audience.
I was asking whether there was Ian Copeland on the picture or Robert Beston, because they were working also for Blinky Scary.
Yeah, just repeat it for the people on the stream. So he was asking for two people that probably also worked for Zeppelin Games, but they didn't.
Yeah, so Ian Copeland and Robert Beston, I think you said. Robert Beston wrote Blinky Scary School. Ian Copeland wrote Draconis on the Atari. He did the port. So I mentioned before that this was like 1987, and in 1989 I moved down to London to go to college, and I think a lot of those guys were doing the later games, so I didn't really meet them. I did everything via the post. I would get a call from Zeppelin saying, "Can you write the music for Blinky Scary School?" I'd be down in London, and then I'd just post the disco. So I didn't really meet those guys.
Like the screen.
Is it you?
No, that's not. That's a guy. That's a guy called Carl Fannin. I was also in a lot of rock bands and metal bands back in the day, and he sadly died. Actually, that's Carl. So he was one of the guitarists in the band. Where did you get that photo? Is that off my Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're approaching my last questions. So, do you know the Atari Sound Music Archive?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, do you have any unreleased songs that I should upload there?
Not on the Atari.
Okay.
Plan to make some new songs for the retro platform.
Yeah, you just dropped yourself into that situation, so...
Yeah. I would answer that.
Okay, then with this we are actually at the end of the list of my questions. So are there any questions from the audience that I haven't asked?
Yeah, I have some.
Yeah, Simon has. Just a second. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the first question is, you said that Draconis were, it was a port, so the original was coded for C64?
Yes.
We don't like you.
Not that word, not the C word.
Oh yeah, you broke our hearts. Could you tell your story about your gizmo handle?
Oh, Gizmo, right, okay, so my nickname at school was Gizmo, shortened to Giz in some places. It probably got that when I was about 12 at school, and this, yeah, it's a weird story.
Okay, that's okay. That's enough.
Put it this way, I used to fool around in school. I was a bit of a joker in the class and doing stupid things, and that was come out of that. I'm not going into it because I believe we're being filmed. I can tell the story later.
Okay, later. Was it electro sound, the music program?
That's it, electro sound, that was it. That was the first music tool I used.
Okay, and do you remember how many tracks you did for Atari? Because for the C64, it was maybe 55, 56.
Yeah.
And you were doing the ports of the sounds, or you had... Okay, the ports.
I've got them here. I actually went and it's quite easy to find my music if it's a Commodore 64 or Atari, 8-bit. But if you're trying to find things like DOS games, there's just not a big scene, or there's not a similar scene to this that I've seen.
Microsoft.
But I noted down, I found all the music I'd written, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 10 Atari 8-bit games, plus a new track.
You're right, I checked it on his archive. So I have here one more question from the audience.
Hello, Michael is here. Do you have any problems with porting music to Atari? I know it's a very weird machine for the musicians, but also, I think also it's a very challenging one. Is it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, most of the guys in this room will know the problem with the frequency tuning on the Pokey chip. On my original games, back in the day, I used 3 channels, because you can pair up 2 channels to get better high precision frequencies for the tuning. So Draconis and Zybex is all done with 3 channels, which makes it easy to port from the Commodore because that only has 3 channels. But things like Time Scanner Deluxe, I use 4 channels, and I'm just very careful with choosing the notes so that they're not quite out of tune. You'll probably hear, if you listen to the Time Scanner Deluxe music, there's some bits that are just very slightly going out of tune, but I try to avoid those notes. And I think it gives the Pokey chip quite a lot of character, you know, as well. It sounds unique because of that. It's like old analog synthesizers, you know, they go out of tune, and that's what makes them unique.
Yeah, and also the people in this room, they have been...
Because for example, Rob said that making music on Pocket was pain in the ass.
Okay, Michael, just for the audience, I'm not sure if I should quote that, but now a quote, as a quote from Michael, is that Rob Hubbard once mentioned that creating music for Pokey was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember it being a pain in the ass. I mean, it's quite a complex chip program. You know, if you program the Pokey, there's a lot of bits that can do different odd things like high pass filtering, and the waveforms are quite wild, some of them, much compared to the SID chip. I shouldn't say that, the C word.
We didn't hear that.
Good. But using tools like RMT, you know, Raster Music Tracker, just makes it a pleasure to program, really. It's good.
Yeah, I remember one guy once said if you have the Atari sound chips, they're essentially all out of tune, and you have three ways to approach it. Either you just choose the notes that sound right, or you toggle highly with a high frequency between things that sound right, or you ignore the problem.
I mean, what I did right at the start of Time Wizard Deluxe is I use a music composition program called Ableton, and it has a guitar tuner plugin. So I created a track in RMT that just went up all of the notes, C, D, E, F, G, D, 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 like this. And I looked at each note in the guitar tuner to see how much it was in tune. And then I wrote down in my notepad which notes were probably going to sound okay and which notes to avoid. And I did that for each of the waveforms and, you know, each of the octaves, just to try and figure out, you know, which notes I could use.
Yeah, and that's again a great info for the ending. It shows that the challenge of the Atari is always to live within the limitations of the hardware and to do the best, to make the best of it. And here we have one who did many of the best things for it, for the tune. Thanks, Adam, for this interview. It was a pleasure to meet you and to interview you, and we hope we see more music from you.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that, and thanks for everyone for coming in. I mean, it's been a great honour to be invited here as well. I mean, it's been 30 years, I think, since I did any music, and talking to all you guys, I've talked to many of you. It's been brilliant hearing about the Atari in Poland and how it came about, and also all of your very kind words about the music I wrote back in the day. And I'm hoping to write lots more music now. So if you're working on a game and you need a musician, I write music for beer. I'm a cheap date.
I also would like to thank you for coming here, for being so cool man, so cool guy. Everyone said that Adam Gilmore is a very good guy. So just the last words, for example me, when I got Draconos or Zybex or Mountain Bike Racer or Jockey Wilson, I was just listening to music. I wasn't playing in this game. Music was the best in this game, the best part of it. So thank you for this music, thanks so much, and also many demo crews were ripping your music to their demo productions. Do you mind about it or no?
So I guess the question is, do I mind if people rip my music and use it in demos and do whatever you want with it? It's very flattering that you're doing these sorts of things. So thank you. Do more.
Okay. So the last words, as you know, today we have the Adam Gilmore cover compo, so I hope you are ready, because we will have almost 20 cover entries. So...
More of the Draconos.
No, not all of the Draconos. From many games. Even from the game I can say, which wasn't ported to the Atari, and it's from Commodore 64. Yes, there is such a game. But okay, that's all from me. Enjoy the rest of the city venture, and thank you once again for coming here. It's a pleasure to see you here. Okay.